Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right, we are on episode 153 of the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. Today is Friday, June the 21st, 2024. We're starting the second set of seasons for the year, so this is a good time for us to really turn our thinking into what is going to work well for us throughout the rest of the year. I've been told by a lot of people that as you move into the second half of the year, you start planning earlier than you would normally do. Most people are starting to plan for the fourth quarter, right, for the next year. But in this case, it seems to be, with everything that's happening and all the changes that are going on in the world right now, that starting a little earlier would be better. For today's agenda on this episode, we're going to be looking at a quote from Napoleon Hill, one of the greatest writers and thinkers of all times when it came to business and people. We're also going to be reviewing more on our business strategies of outsourcing and partnerships, turning today to look at how they're implemented using two different case studies that I'm pulling up. Now, to go back over this briefly before we dig in, we want to look at this whole process and break it down into three essential steps. Outsourcing being slightly different from partnerships. In the case of outsourcing, we're looking at vendor selection. We're going to be picking out the criteria of who we're going to be looking at and what is going to be necessary for them in order to execute on this for us. We will be doing contract negotiation and management. We'll be doing communication and collaboration as a final setup before we make our final decision. And then in partnerships, we have partner selection and the criteria for that. Same kind of thing as for the vendor. But now we move into agreement development. In many cases, there aren't contracts in partnerships. A lot of times we find ourselves doing handshake partnerships, and that's not a bad thing, but we still should have some sort of agreement in place just to be able to hammer out any differences in how we're looking at things. And finally, where we would have communication and collaboration and outsourcing, now we want to look at this from a relationship management point of view. And you'll see that very clearly as we go through these two case studies. So let's dig into our quote for the day. Napoleon Hill, he said, "There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it." Now, I know that for a lot of business owners, they get stuck. And I myself have gone through this several times over the years. As you get stuck, you lose sight of that thing that's just a burning passion for you. It's something that you absolutely have to overcome or get through or possess or whatever. And it must be in your life in order for you to move forward. And if you find yourself stuck, you probably need to take a step back and go back to this very point right here. And I know I've had to many times. Because the things that we have a burning passion for will keep us going through the downtimes. They'll keep us going when everyone else tells us we're an idiot, when everyone else tells us that that's not going to work. I myself have overcome quite a few things in life, some of which were easier and some of which were harder. There were a lot of social pressures to do things in certain ways. And I had my own ideas that kept me going through all of the pressure that came from all different places, not just friends, from family, from college, and the people that you deal with, and the things that are happening to you. You have to be able to get through these. And we've talked about the idea of challenges being there to help you improve how you do things. Because if you get to the other side of the challenge and you haven't learned the lessons of the challenge, it's going to be very hard on you in order to continue moving, and you're going to keep finding yourself bashed back and forth against that problem. So always work with your burning desire, what it is that you need in order to keep going and keep achieving in your world. And it includes that definiteness of purpose. Okay, looking at our business strategies of outsourcing and partnerships. Today, let's explore how different service-based businesses can effectively implement these business strategies to boost their performance and achieve their goals. Grab your notepads. This is going to be very instructive for everyone. First of all, let's talk about outsourcing, specifically a customer service outsourcing their plan for an e-commerce company. This is going to be our first case study. They started by identifying what exactly they needed help with. In this case, it's customer inquiries, return processing, and live chat support. Now, these were all pain points that they needed to address, but they wanted to make sure that whatever outsourcing partner they chose could do those above and beyond what they needed. Next, they defined what they were looking for in that partner. They wanted someone with a solid reputation, proven expertise in customer support, and a good cultural fit for their business. Now, they started their search by looking at companies that had positive reviews and testimonials. They maybe even reached out to some colleagues in the industry for recommendations. I'm not sure exactly how they got that, but they came to us with that information. To make it smoother, they created a detailed request for proposal, and I worked with them directly on that to outline their specific needs and expectations. Now, that helps potential partners understand the requirements and allows them to compare their offering more effectively. An RFP is very good if you've done it the right way. Once they had a short list of potential partners, it was crucial to define the scope of work clearly. After all, the RFP isn't the scope of work. That's a slightly different thing that's more closely matched to what the different partners were on the short list. And they want to make sure that they and the outsourced partner had a mutual understanding of what success looked like. They might specify that customer inquiries should be responded to within 24 hours and that return processing should be completed within 48 hours. Now, those kinds of benchmarks help keep everyone on the same page, and they also provide a clear measure of performance. Now, this is an aside, not part of the case study, but something that I want to pass on. In my research, I determined that any response longer than 5 to 10 minutes after a contact was unacceptable. All right, it's 24 hours would absolutely not be acceptable. Many others are okay with that. I don't know about you, but my experience is that when you're contacted by a customer or a client, you only have a maximum of 20 minutes to respond to any kind of inquiry. It's just my perspective. Your mileage may vary. Moving on, contract negotiation came next. Now, this step involved detailing the deliverables, the timelines, and the payment terms. They sat down with a potential partner, and I listened in on this, and we outlined together between the two different companies and myself exactly what everyone expected. How quickly should they respond to customers? What's the procedure for processing returns? And what are the payment terms, right? That made sure that everything was as detailed as possible to avoid any surprises down the line. To smooth out the process, they included penalty clauses for not meeting agreed upon performance metrics. For instance, if the partner failed to meet the response time criteria, there could be a reduction in their payment. It added an extra layer of accountability, although it also opened up communication at a different level as both partners had to meet those time requirements. Once a contract was signed, it's all about implementation. Now, they set up regular performance reviews and open communication channels to ensure that both parties stayed aligned and could address any issues promptly. Regular meetings and detailed reports help maintain the transparency and ensure that the outsourcing partner met the agreed upon standards. They agreed to a weekly check-in call, same time every week, where they reviewed performance metrics, discussed any issues, and made sure everything was on track. This ongoing communication was crucial to maintain a successful outsourcing relationship. One thing I recommended that they add internally was a daily stand up to collect any issues on a fast basis so that if anything really went awry, they could deal with it much faster outside of a huge meeting. This was simply among the stakeholders to decide how that all happened. And of course, they were prepared for potential issues like miscommunication, cultural differences. They didn't have any cultural issues, but there were some misunderstandings occasionally. Even when you're measuring things, the question becomes, how strictly should that measurement be? Right? And it created some delays and a lot of misunderstandings. So we put in place a shared platform for real-time updates to keep everyone informed. And that daily stand-up internally was part of that shared platform. As something of an interlude, if you've been following this podcast for any length of time, or if you live in Indiana, you know that the gardeners are out every day during the summer. This is no exception this year. So if they're in the background, I'll try to take out the noise as much as I can in post-production. But, if you hear some going on in the background, just ignore it. Forming strategic partnerships. It's one of the types of partnerships that is probably one of the most common. And it could be immensely instructive for all service-based businesses on how to implement a partner that's strategic to you, not necessarily doing the same thing you do, but doing something complementary that either you don't like to do or that you find they have better expertise. These strategic partnerships come in real handy. They can help you expand your service offerings, increase your market reach, and also optimize your operational costs. So let's look at another example of a digital marketing agency looking to partner with a web development firm. Now, the objective here was to expand service offerings and attract new client segments through combined resources and expertise. They offered top-notch marketing strategies, but often received requests for web development services, which they currently didn't provide. I helped them to see an opportunity to partner with a web development firm to fill this gap. The first step they went through was identifying potential partners, very much like the other side of the coin here, the first case study we talked about. They started by looking for firms offering complementary services like web development and assess their reputation, reliability, and cultural fit. Now, they might have reached out to a few firms or quite a few and asked for references. I didn't ask them about that. But I'm sure they checked their past work to ensure that these new companies all aligned with their standards and values. I suggested that they might want to attend industry events and networking sessions where they could meet some of these potential partners in person. Now that, of course, helped build rapport and allowed a more thorough assessment of their fit with the business. It depended, of course, on who went to these various events and these different sessions, but ultimately it gave a good sense of how that might work for them. They did find a potential partner. In fact, they found 3, and they sat down with them to define the partnership structure. Each one had a slightly different desire to deal with that structure differently, and as you can imagine, they were able to hammer it down to one partner at the end. They also decided on a strategic alliance where both parties clearly outlined their roles, responsibilities, and contributions. They agreed on equity distribution, profit-sharing mechanisms, and investment contributions. That ensured that both partners benefited fairly from the collaboration. To advance this, they drafted a detailed business plan that highlighted the benefits of the partnership for both parties. This helped in securing buy-in from both sides and provided a clear roadmap for collaboration. Creating a partnership agreement came next. That document outlined the scope of work, project deliverables, timelines, and performance metrics. Conflict resolution mechanisms were also included to handle any disputes that might arise. They thought of it as their roadmap for the partnership, detailing who did what, by when, and how success was measured. And this is a great way to think about it. For example, they specified that the web development firm would handle all technical aspects of website creation, while the agency focused on content and marketing strategy. Clearly defining things like these prevented overlap and ensured that each partner understood their responsibilities. Effective implementation and collaboration were crucial. They developed a plan to integrate their services seamlessly and establish regular communication channels to keep everyone aligned. This strategic partnership, by the way, was a two-way partnership. Clients could come in from either party and smoothly be integrated with the other partner. And that was really an important part. Obviously, they set up bi-weekly strategy sessions to discuss ongoing projects, share their updates, and address any issues that might be occurring. Now, they had a project management tool. They actually used Asana for some parts of it and Trello for other parts, but they wanted to streamline the communication and keep everyone on track. So those types of tools provided a shared platform where both teams could talk in real time, reducing the chance of miscommunication. Risk management was another important aspect. They conducted due diligence to assess a partner's financial health and ensure legal compliance. An exit strategy was also developed to handle the dissolution of the partnership if necessary. It's like having an insurance policy that they hope they never needed, but it was crucial to have just in case. And it turned out being not necessary. They are still working together, by the way, and that's a great thing. I love when you get great partnerships that can work for a long period of time. Because these partners were so equally tied together, if either party experienced financial difficulties, it could obviously impact their ability to deliver on their own commitments as well as the others. So having an exit strategy in place helped them navigate that situation smoothly. One of the parties did run into a financial situation for a little bit. They were able to recover it. And in fact, both parties worked together to kind of cover up that financial part of it and deal with it. Obviously, regular monitoring and evaluation kept the partnership on track. Periodic reviews assessed performance against established KPIs. Always set KPIs. They are on the front end, not on the back end. And a continuous feedback mechanism allowed them for ongoing improvement. I also suggested that they set up quarterly reviews where both parties assessed progress, discussed challenges, and brainstormed improvements. Technology and service of any kind does not stay static, and if you need to make adjustments one way or another, it's always good to keep that open. To mitigate any issues, they established clear, open communication channels and were proactive in addressing any issues that arose. That's so important for everybody. If you have misaligned objectives and project priorities, addressing it early could prevent bigger conflicts down the line. As you can imagine, scope creep, things like this can really create a problem when you have a partnership where one has to hand off to the other at specific points, as in this very case. But by proactively addressing all these challenges, they built a strong, effective partnership that benefited both businesses. And these partnerships, like any relationship, required ongoing effort and communication to thrive. And there you have it, an in-depth look at how two business partnerships and outsourcing environments effectively implemented both in their service-based business. So to do a quick recap, we did our quote from Napoleon Hill. We covered outsourcing and partnership examples, one of each, and we went through the whole process from start to finish of each one. I'm going to go ahead and call episode 153 completed today. I wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care. We'll be back next week to take a look at a different side of outsourcing and partnerships.